This is the generation of them that seek his face. This is the generation of them that seek his face.
Shabbat Shalom. We want to welcome each and every one of you, especially on this Shabbat as we are beginning also the Feast of Tabernacles, Chag Sukkot. So we want to welcome every one of you that are here in our teaching center, and those of you that are coming in through our YouTube channel. I want to specifically welcome you. I want to welcome our guests. We have several guests here that have come for Sukkot and have stayed here, and we're going to have a good Sukkot. The sukkahs are out there, the Sukkot are out there and already built, and we've been working on them. So please join us if you're passing through Albuquerque or you're in the Albuquerque area, and please join us here at Olive Tree Fellowship. We're at 2621 Cagua, and in our Olive Tree website you could get directions there. Well, we've been teaching about the fall feast, and this series I want to call the Fall Feast Unleashed 2023, and today we are going to be looking at part 3, Chag Sukkot, or the feast. The Chag is a feast of Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, and we're going to have a good feast. In fact, tomorrow we're going to have a barbecue, a feast. We're all invited, and everybody brings all kinds of different things, and hamburgers and hot dogs. Of course, make sure they're all kosher. Everything we here we have kosher. But we also want to say Chag Sameach, have a happy feast for Sukkot 23. This is a picture I took last night as the moon, some people call it the harvest moon, the Sukkot moon was coming over the beautiful Sandia mountains, and there it was a little windy, and the Sukkot were already all ready to go. And so we want to say have a blessed, wherever you're at, whatever, if you're watching this 6 months from now, we just had a good time. We've already had a good time here and fellowshipping, and so we want to welcome you. I want you to turn to Leviticus chapter 23, beginning with verse 33. Now, we read this from the Torah scrolls. We read it today. This was our reading, our Torah reading for this special Shabbat. And it says there, Yahweh spoke to Moshe, and he said, speak to the Israelites. Now, the Hebrew actually says, speak to Bnei Israel, the sons of Israel, and say, on the 15th day of this 7th month, there will be a feast of shelters, a feast of Sukkot, a feast of tabernacles, a feast of tents for Yahweh. Now look at this. One of the things that we've specifically said about all the feasts, the 7 feasts, the Moedim, and many people call them the feasts of the Jews. They're not feasts of the Jews. Many people call them the feasts of Israel. They're not the feasts of Israel. Scripture calls them the feast, or the Moedim Yahweh, the feast of Yahweh, and the feast of the Lord in King James speak. But this feast, like all the other ones and all the other Yomim, are for Yahweh. They are His. They don't belong to us. And this is why it's so important. And I want to make sure everybody learns this. And if you haven't learned this, I want you to learn this. Okay, this is a very simple formula, very simple, but people still don't get it. Okay, 2 plus 2 equals 4. 2 plus 2 equals 4. Everybody got that, right? Okay. Learn this. 2 plus 2 does not equal 3. 2 plus 2 does not equal 5. 2 plus 2 equals 4. As long as you know that, you could understand the word of Elohim completely. In other words, do not add and do not take away. Do not add to Torah. Do not take away from Torah. And religion adds and takes away. The Judaisms out there have added and taken away. The Christianities out there have added and taken away. But what we need to do today is return to 2 plus 2 equals 4. Now it says it's a feast for Yahweh. It's not for the Jews. It's not for Israel. It's for Yahweh. Now, Adonai has given these through Israel, through Moses, through the Hebrews, and today the Jewish people are the ones that have carried them even when the Messianic Gentiles threw them away, lost them. The Jewish people, we could bless and thank that they have kept them alive. But we also need to do now is say, thank you, Adonai, that these people were strong enough, even through persecutions, inquisition, to keep your Torah alive. And it was the responsibility of the Hebrews of Israel not to keep them to themselves, but now Adonai in these last days has shown us that now we want to open our hearts and give these to the nations, because they should have always not just been for Israel to keep for themselves from Yahweh, but to give them to the nations. That's why it's important what Yeshua said to 11 Jewish men. Adonai, Yeshua discipled 12 Jewish men. One took off, and after his resurrection, Yeshua took these 11 men to Mount Arbel there in the Galilee, and he took them to the top of this mountain overlooking the Sea of Galilee, and he said to these 12 men who had been discipled for 3.5 years, they were discipled men. He did not take the masses up there. He did not take everybody up there. He took 11 discipled men, and he took these discipled men, and in a sense he says, as I've discipled you, I've discipled you. Now, you go and disciple the nations, the Goyim. Make disciples of all Goyim. Look at that. What we call the Great Commission is not an evangelism commission for every believer. It is an ordination. It is a commission. It is an appointment, a sending of 11 discipled men to go now disciple the nations, the Goyim. The Goyim should have been discipled. Now, when the Goyim got this, now they threw it away. They locked it up. They bound it up, and we need to now unleash Torah from the binds that it has been for 2,000 years. Now, this Feast of Shelters, this Feast of Tabernacles, lasting for 7 days. There are 7 days of the Feast of Tabernacles. The first day, there will be a sacred assembly, a Mikra Kodesh. That's tomorrow. Okay, it begins tonight, and every Hebrew day always begins at sundown. So, Tabernacles begins tonight. And the day part of Tabernacles, which is tomorrow, is a day of sacred assembly. holy convocation, a time to meet. And as we said, the men meet at 9 o'clock. It's a regelim. A regelim means all the men folk. How many of you are men folk here? How many are you men folk out there? It says all the men folk are to appear before Yahweh 3 times a year. At the Feast of Unleavened Bread, at the Feast of Shavuot, Pentecost, and at the Feast of Shelters, Tabernacle, Sukkot. So what we do here is all the men at 9 o'clock, we all meet here together. We come, and what do? We muster before Adonai, just like in the military. We mustered before our commander. We mustered. We came and we stood there and he inspected us. Well, 3 times a year, man, we stand before Adonai for his inspection. And so all men are invited tomorrow. And what do? Oh, we just come and stand. We come and share. I share some things to the men. And so we have a sacred assembly. And then right after that, a lot of the ladies and the children are out back while us men are over here. And then right after that, at 10 o'clock, then we all come together and we have a sacred assembly teaching. You will do no heavy work. So tomorrow, the day of, the first day of Sukkot is the day of no work. We will do no work. For 7 days you will offer burnt offerings. On the 8th day, so Sukkot is 7 days, but there is an 8th day, Shemini Asaret. You will hold another sacred assembly, and you will offer a burnt offering for Yahweh, and you will do the rituals of this day. So this is the plan. This is 2 plus 2 equals 4. We don't add to this. We don't take away. And we must do what it says here. Of course, there's other instructions, and I'm going to encourage you to read the rest of Leviticus 23:33 and beyond, so you could understand more of what is there. In fact, let me get my scriptures here, and I want you now to turn to Nehemiah chapter 1. Nehemiah chapter 1. Nehemiah, of course, is after 2nd Hezekiah. So if you can't find Nehemiah, find 2nd Hezekiah. And Nehemiah chapter 8. And now watch what Nehemiah chapter 8 has to say. And in some of your Bibles, depending on if your Tanakh is translated from the Septuagint or the Hebrew, it'll have a different numbering system. Either chapter 8, verse 1, or chapter 72, verse 72 of chapter 7. And the numbering is wrong there. And it says there, when the 7th month came, all the people gathered as one man on the square of the water gate. Now it's interesting, it says when the 7th month came around. Now I want you to see what happened here. Nehemiah, Ezra, Zerubbabel had just come back from captivity. We were in Babylon for 70 years. And they came back and they rebuilt the temple. Not as beautiful as Solomon's great, magnificent first temple, but a modest temple. And when they came back, always remember, while they were in captivity for those 70 years, Ezra the priest was a little boy. Maybe he hadn't even been born. Now, 70 years later, he is an old priest. He's an old Cohen. Now remember, a Cohen is the son of a Cohen, and the father's a Cohen, the son's a Cohen. So his father, Ezra's father, was a Cohen. So Ezra's father discipled his son. Even though they were in captivity, he taught them what needed to be done. So when he comes to Jerusalem and they built the temple, he comes with what I call a turnkey operation. He started everything right away. And when the seventh month came around, all the Israelites, the sons of Israel, now came, and it says there, they gathered as one man before the water gate. They asked Ezra the scribe to bring the scroll of the Torah of Moses, which Yahweh had prescribed for Israel. Accordingly, Ezra the priest brought the Torah before the assembly, before the Kehillah. So they were assembled. Now remember, these people had been in Babylon now 70 years. They had lost the Hebrew language. Ezra kept the Hebrew language. But the people had now gotten into Aramaic. And all the people didn't know Torah. In fact, some of them probably didn't even know that there even was a Torah. These people had become totally Babylonianized, if you will. And all of a sudden what happens is they ask him to bring the Torah, consisting of men, women, and children old enough to understand. So the congregation there in the open, now remember, this is the first day of the seventh month, which is Yom Teruah. And so one of the things is that they all got together, men, women, and children, old enough to understand. And as they stood there, and was the first day of the seventh month, on the square before the water gate, in the presence of men, women, and children old enough to understand, he read from the scroll from early morning till noon. Think of it. We're talking about outside. The weather in Jerusalem is pretty much like the weather here. Now you're all sitting down, and some of you are saying, "Oh man, it's already 12:10. Well, we're going late tonight." But watch, what? Think of them from early morning till noon. He read from the Torah. Can you imagine if I stand before the Torah scroll, reading in Hebrew from this morning till noon? Most of you don't understand what I'm reading in Hebrew. I'll have to translate into English or Spanish or the language of whatever. In this case, I'd have to translate into Aramaic. How many of you would stay there from early morning till noon? Many people would just go home. In fact, sometimes when I'm getting just a little bit too long on my sermon, I see one or two step out and, it's time to go home. And so today we're not used to that. And so I want to use even this as a way of telling you, hey, let's become Hebrews like in the Word. Okay. And it says, he read from the scroll from early morning till noon. All the people listened attentively to the scroll of the Torah. They listened how? Attentively. Now remember, they didn't know too much of what he was saying in Hebrew. They knew Aramaic. So even the language that they didn't know, they were listening to. Ezra the scribe stood on a wooden pulpit erected for the purpose. Beside him stood on his right, and all of a sudden there was people on his right, and there was priests on his left. Just like here when I read, we had people on my right, and we have people on my left over here. So what we're doing here is I got it from here. I got it from here. And it says he gives the name of the people, Messiah, Shema, Azariah, Uriah, Hilkiah, Maaseiah. On his left were Peladiah, Mishael, Malchiah, Chashbun, Chashbanah, Zechariah, and Meshullam. Now, how many would like to have names like that? In full view of the people, since he stood higher than all the people, just like we stand higher than all the people as we read from the Torah scrolls. And this was in front of the water gate, and there was probably hundreds of people there. And then it goes on to say, then Ezra blessed Yahweh. Why do we have the blessings? You know, right before I said, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, we do the blessings because they blessed Yahweh. Now notice that they blessed Yahweh, and so we bless Yahweh. The great Elohim, and all the people raised their hands and answered, Amen and Amen. Then they bowed down and faced to the ground, prostrate themselves before Yahweh. Yeshua, Benai, Sherebiah, Yamin, Akub, Shebetiah, Hodiah, Maaseah, Kileta, Azariah, Yozabab, Hanan, Peletiah, who were Levites. Now listen to this. Who were Levites, explained the Torah to the people while the people remained standing. So they stood all this time. Can you imagine standing from early morning till noon and Ezra reading, and scattered among the people were all these Levites, and it says there, and they explained the Torah to the people while the people remained standing. And Ezra read from the Torah of Elohim, translating, and giving the sense. And some people call that a drash, what we would call today a sermon. He's interpreting what the Torah says. He is interpreting it to the people. And that's what I'm doing right now. We're reading from Torah. We read from Torah. We explained it a little bit. We're reading from my Haftarah, my prophets reading for today, translating and giving the sense so that people understood what was read. Because remember, they weren't understanding what was read because, you know, he had to translate. And then it was on to say, then Nehemiah, his excellency, who was a governor, Ezra the priest and scribe, and the Levites were instructing the people, and they said to all the people, this is a day holy to Yahweh, your Elohim. Do not be mournful, do not weep. For the people were all in tears as they listened to the words of Torah. Why were they in tears as they listened to the word of Torah? Because remember, they were in captivity for 70 years. And they had not heard, they probably never even saw a Torah scroll. And this would have been Ezra's Torah scroll. And as Ezra's reading, as the Levites are out there giving sense of what he was saying and translating from Hebrew to Aramaic, as he was doing that, the people were crying because they had not heard the word for 70 years, many of them. And they were crying. And then it says there, he then said to them, go eat the fat, drink the sweet wine, and send portions to the man who has nothing prepared ready. Now remember, this is Yom Teruah. This is the first day of the 7th month. It is a Shabbat. And as they gathered for that special Shabbat in the Watergate, right before, and that would be today by the Gihon Spring. Those of you that know the geography of Jerusalem, this is by the Gihon Spring on the Kidron Valley there. We've taken many people and read this at that very place. And he tells them there, and send portions. So Yom Teruah is a day of celebration. It's a day that you celebrate. Notice that there's nothing here about the gates are open and this is Rosh Hashanah and there's nothing there. Those are additions that have come in. The gates are open. This is a time of Teshuvah. It is not a time of Teshuvah. It is a time of rejoicing. It is Yom Teruah. It is a day of celebration. And there was no days of awe in these days of Ezra or in the days of Yeshua. Those are additions that are post-biblical. 2 + 2 = 5. Now, we go on here, and it goes on to say, for this day is sacred to Adonai. Do not be sad. The joy of Yahweh is your strength. The joy of Yahweh is our strength. The joy of Yahweh is our strength. Can I join the worship singing team? And the Levites calmed the people, saying, be at ease. This is a sacred day. Do not be sad. And all the people went off to eat and drink and share away and give shares away and began to enjoy themselves. This is a day of joy. Does it say joy? This is the day of joy, a sacred day, a holy day. Yom Teruah is a holy day. Don't be sad. There is a day of Teshuvah, by the way, only one day. Only one day, and that's Yom Kippur. That's the day that we come before Adonai. We do not have 40 days of Lent. We do not have 40 days of Lent from Elul 1 to Yom Kippur. Those are not 40 days of Lent. Elul is just a regular month. Yom Teruah is a day of joy, a sacred day, a holy day, a day of blowing the shofar. And the next day, also the second day. Now, let's go on and see what the word says. And it goes on to say, and let's see, where was I? Do not be sad. And all the people went off to eat and drink and give shares away. Again, because if you can't buy or sell on that day, so what do? If you don't have nothing, you help your brother, you give, you share from your food and what your table to, maybe that's where they got all this Christmas stuff of sharing food. You know, always remember, people steal, people give, people have a transference of some of their customs. And so some of this has probably come into the Christian area. And it says, since they understood the meaning of what had been proclaimed to them, they understood about joy, about eating, about celebrating. On the second day, now I'm kind of getting ahead of myself over here. Here's Ezra as he's reading and the Torah scrolls, and there we have the men on his right, and we can't see the rest of them. I cut the thing off, and the ones on his left, and all the people there in front. And you see the Levites over here, the Levites in front, as they are also calming the people and telling the people, translating to the people, and giving the people sense of what was written. And let's go to verse 13 there. Verse 13. And this is what's important for us today. This is what's important for us today. On the second day, now the second day of the seventh month, it says there, the families of the whole people and the priests and the Levites gathered around Ezra the scribe to study the words of the Torah. These guys didn't have enough on the first day. They wanted more. More Torah, more Torah, more Torah. We should always be asking for more Torah. And written in the Torah that Yahweh had prescribed through Moses, they found this. So think of it. Now I'm going to tell you, this is a speculation, this is an assumption. But I hope you understand this. On the first day, they must have read from Breshit, what we call today Breshit 1:1, to Leviticus 23. I'm assuming that. Why am I assuming that? Because watch what it says. On the second day, they found this. The sons of Israel are to live in shelters during the feast of the 7th month. Where's that at? That's Leviticus 23:33. Is that a good assumption? I'm not 2 + 2 = 5, right? I hope I'm not doing it. But that's what it says. They found this verse. Now watch this. These Jewish people here are men and women that understand Adonai. Not like us. Lazy. And people that we need our time. We need transition. We need to transition. Watch what it says. And I love this. I just love it. Watch what it says. It says, as soon as they found this, the sons of Israel shall live in shelters during the feast of the 7th month. As soon as they heard this, they issued a proclamation. Boom, se acabó. Let's get going. You know, they issued a proclamation. As soon as they heard this, they issued a proclamation, and watch what the proclamation said. In all the towns and in Jerusalem, go into the hills and bring branches of olive, pine, myrtle, palm, and other leafy trees to make shelters, as it says in the scroll. So from the 2nd day after Yom Teruah, they started going into the hills and into the riverbeds and all this and getting these species. Now, it mentions different species, other species that we don't have, that people don't use today. And it says that they went into the hills, the people went, they brought back branches and made themselves shelters, sukkot. Each man on his own roof, look at that, on the roof of their house. In their courtyards, in the precincts of the temple of Elohim, on the square of the water gate, in the square of the gate of Ephraim. The whole assembly, all who had returned from captivity, put up shelters and lived in them. And so look at this. As soon as they heard, they all put up shelters. Now, some of them probably had little homes that they couldn't. So they went into the neighborhood. They went everywhere. And by the way, look what it says and look what it doesn't say. And this is for some of you Hebrew roots people. Those of you that are into Hebrew roots. We're not into Hebrew roots, but those of you that listen to this carefully. They were in Jerusalem. When they proclaimed this, everybody centralized in the town, in the towns, because it mentions towns plural. And they came in, they centralized. Look what they didn't go do. They didn't say, hey, let's go camping. Sukkot is not a time for camping. All kinds of people today, when it's Sukkot, some of these, even some of you who have big organizations, big ministries, you go out there and you rent a big park, or you go up into the mountains, you charge $500 per RV or whatever. And all the people, yeah, you have a good time and stuff like that. This is not the time to go and hide in the mountains. Whoa, we lived for 40 years out there. Yeah, we lived in the wilderness for 40 years, but we don't do that now. And so we centralize. We don't decentralize, we centralize. Why? Because this is the Feast of the Nations. In Isaiah and others, this is the Feast of the Nations. This is a feast, as we're going to see next week, is the Feast of the Millennium. And so one of the things that we need to do is proclaim to the nations. How are you going to proclaim to the nations out there in a campground when, yeah, we're all singing Kumbaya and doing all this thing out there with, wait a second, our neighbors are watching. People are, and many times they have people that, in fact, I think it was last year we had a Jewish person come by and says, hey, what are you guys doing? And so we shared with them what we're doing, and they could not understand why we as followers of Yeshua are doing a Jewish thing. It's not a Jewish thing. It's a Yahweh thing, and it's for all the nations. So we invite all the nations to come and to join us, So Sukkot is a time of bringing people in. Everybody's welcome. Always remember, when someone comes here, not just at Sukkot, but any time, everybody's welcome. This is a place for everybody. And not a place to exclude anybody, but a place so that anybody could come, feel welcome, and know that what we're doing here, we want to proclaim to the nations. Now, as we close here, watch what it says. Watch what it says here, and I love this part. I love this part. And it says there in verse 17, the whole assembly and all who are returned from captivity put up shelters, Sukkot, and lived in them. The sons of Israel had never done such a thing from the days of Yeshua ben Nun till the present, and there was great merrymaking. This is a time of merrymaking. Now watch this. This is the second day. This is not, this is the second day that they built them, and this was a time of merrymaking. But watch what it says. Since the time of Yeshua ben Nun. Now who's Yeshua ben Nun? Joshua, Yehoshua. Now remember, Joshua's name wasn't Joshua. His name was Hosea. Hosea was his name. Moses changed his name when he sent Hosea and Caleb and the others to reconnoiter the land. When he sent them out there in Numbers 10, he changed his name from Hosea to Yehoshua. Hosea means salvation. Yehoshua, the whole part is his Yah is salvation. His Yah is salvation. Yehoshua. But while we were in captivity, while our ancestors were in captivity, a lot of the names got shortened. So Yehoshua, like William, was changed to Yeshua, like Bill. So all Williams were named Bill. So all Yehoshuas were named Yeshua. Notice that one of the Levites also was named Yeshua. And so in the Hebrew, now this gets rid of something that is a little problem with some of the Hebrew people, again, is that a lot of people are coming up with all kinds of names. Yahshua. His name is His name is not Yahshua. Where do you find Yahshua in Tanakh or the Apostolic writings? You don't. That spelling is never found. His name is Yeshua. And if you look at this verse in your Hebrew, you'll find that your Hebrew does not say Yehoshua ben Nun. It says Yeshua ben Nun. So Yeshua, our Yeshua HaMashiach, Yeshua of Nazareth, his name, yes, the full name is Yehoshua or Joshua. In English, you could call Joshua Christ. There's nothing wrong with that. That's again, if you're going to be consistent with names, the translators are not consistent with names, titles, or anything in Tanakh and New Covenant scriptures. But we need to be consistent. So Yeshua, and by the way, Jesus is a good transliteration of Yeshua. Jesus is a transliteration of Yeshua. Jesus is not Zeus. A lot of people say that Jesus is, hey, Zeus. No, those are, in Greek, those are different letters. I can show you. And it's not, hey, Zeus. Zeus is the Hebrew word for horse, so some people say it means the horse. All kinds of stuff going around in the internet and among some of these groups. No, Yeshua is his name during the Second Temple period, and nothing had been done this good. Think of it, from the days of Joshua, Yeshua, Ben Nun, till now. That means that in David's time, yeah, they celebrated Sukkot, but not like this. This was the greatest Sukkot that Israel has had since the time of Joshua. That's a long, long time. And our Sukkots here, at least for me, for us, are the best Sukkots we've ever had. And every year it gets better. And this year we're going to have a good need you to come and join with us. And so we want to, let's stand before Adonai. And as we come to Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, I hope those of you that have built Sukkot here, some of you have built Sukkot at your house. Want to thank those of you, Andrew and Kendra, those of you that helped build our sukkah. And so I want to thank you. And it looks a little bit like that with all these branches from the river. They went, I think Joe and Kendra went to the river yesterday and got all kinds of branches and brought them and put them on. So we are in a time of blessing. Father, I thank you for Sukkot. I thank you for what you've given us today. And we give you honor, glory. We give you praise for who you are. Yeverechecha Yahweh va'yishmerecha. Ayir Yahweh panav elecha v'chunecha. Asa Yahweh panav elecha v'yasem lecha. Shalom. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face shine upon you, be gracious unto you. May Yahweh lift up the light of his countenance upon you and give you his peace. Shalom, shalom, Chag Sameach. And remember, 2 plus 2 equals 4.
Shalom, shalom. Welcome to Olive Tree Fellowship and Torah Unleashed Ministries. Thank you for joining us on our channel. If you have enjoyed this teaching and would like to see more, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to click the notification bell so that you can be notified when we have new videos. If you would like to support Olive Tree Fellowship and Torah Unleashed Ministries, please visit us at olivetreefellowship.com or TorahUnleashed.org. We thank you for your past support and hope to continue with you. Shalom, shalom. Have a good day. Shalom, shalom y bienvenidos a Olive Tree y a la Torah Desatada. Les doy gracias a ustedes y a Adonai por su apoyo que nos han dado aquí. Y si quieren continuar a hacer una donación, pueden ir aquí en TorahUnleashed.org o en olivetreefellowship.com y ahí pueden dar una donación. Su apoyo, su ayuda es importante en estos días. Shalom, shalom.